Welcome everyone to Ghostly Broadcast, Global Paranormal Station. I'm your host Timothy, and as we gather here at my farm in the late night, I'm honored to share some chilling, real-life experiences from our devoted listeners across the globe. Tonight's theme is nocturnal animal disturbances. Prepare yourselves for held breaths and shivers down your spine. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable notifications to stay up to date with more unsettling true stories. Now, let's delve into our first story. I'm Alex, hailing from a small town in Kansas. I've been tuning into your show for a good while now, and I've finally gathered the guts to share my own unnerving experience with you and your audience. I've always been a bit of a doubter when it comes to the supernatural, but a certain incident one night has made me question everything I thought I knew. I hope that by sharing this, it might make others who've had similar experiences feel less isolated and perhaps find some clarity. So here's what went down. It kicked off on an average Thursday night. I was home alone with my dog, Max, a friendly golden retriever. My wife was away on a business trip, so it was just Max and me in our two-story house. Max is usually a calm dog, but that night he started behaving unusually. It was around 11 p.m. when I first noticed Max's strange behavior. He started pacing near the front door, whimpering and occasionally growling softly. I tried to soothe him, but he seemed disturbed and wouldn't calm down. I thought he might need to go outside, so I opened the door and let him out into our fenced yard. While Max was outside, I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. As I was filling my glass, I heard a soft scratching sound coming from the back door. I assumed it was Max wanting to come back in, so I went to let him in. But when I opened the door, Max wasn't there. Instead, I found him still standing near the front door, whining and staring intently at something in the dark. Worried, I decided to check out what was troubling Max. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, scanning the front yard. At first, I didn't see anything unusual, but just as I was about to go back inside, I noticed something from the corner of my eye. There was a figure standing near the boundary of our property, partially obscured by the tree shadows. The figure seemed to be a man, but he was standing completely still, just staring at our house. I felt a shiver run down my spine, and I called out to him, asking if he needed assistance or if he was lost. The man didn't reply, but instead slowly turned around and walked away. I was deeply unsettled by this encounter, and I quickly went back inside, making sure to lock all the doors and windows. Max continued to be restless throughout the night, and I couldn't shake off the feeling of discomfort that had come over me. I stayed up late, keeping an eye on the front yard and listening for any odd noises. Around 3 a.m. I was still wide awake, and Max was still pacing near the front door. Suddenly he let out a loud, distressed bark, and I knew something was amiss. I rushed to the window and saw the same man from earlier standing in our front yard, this time much closer to the house. He was staring directly at our front door, completely still. My heart pounded, and I quickly grabbed my phone to call the police. As I was on the call with the dispatcher, I continued to watch the man through the window. He didn't move, just stood there, staring at our door with a disturbing intensity. The police arrived within a few minutes, but by the time they reached our house, the man was gone. They searched the property and surrounding area, but there was no sign of him. The officers took my statement and advised me to be vigilant for any further suspicious activity. The next day, I shared the unsettling encounter with my wife, and we both agreed to get a security system for our home. Max eventually returned to his usual calm self, but I couldn't shake off the lingering sense of dread from that night. To this day, we have never seen the man again, nor have we experienced anything else unusual. But every now and then, when I'm alone at night, I can't help but feel a chill in the air and wonder if the man is still out there, watching. I hope my story serves as a reminder to always trust your instincts and to never dismiss the unusual behavior of your pets. They have a keen sense of perception that we humans often lack. And to anyone who has experienced something similar, know that you're not alone. There are many of us out there, living with the memories of these unexplained encounters, searching for answers. Our second story. Sarah, a regular listener from Portland, Oregon, sent in her account of a disquieting event involving her Labrador, Buddy. I've been a fan of your channel, Tim, but I never thought I'd have my own incident to share. Something's happened recently that's been giving me restless nights, and I thought your show would be the right place to share it. So, here's my disconcerting story about Buddy and the odd sound he's been making at night. It started a couple of weeks back. Buddy, a typically well-behaved Labrador, has never been the kind to cause havoc or draw attention. However, one night, my sleep was disrupted by the sound of Buddy whimpering in our living room, which was unusual given Buddy's habit of sleeping soundly throughout the night. Curious and worried, I left my bed to see what was bothering him. It could have been an upset stomach, or maybe he just needed to relieve himself. On reaching the living room, I found Buddy in a huddled position on the floor, his gaze fixed on a corner of the room, ears pinned back. Whatever it was he was concentrating on. I couldn't see it, but his whimpering became more intense as I neared him. No matter what I did to soothe him, Buddy wouldn't tear his gaze away from the corner. I checked around the room to find out what could be causing his distress, but nothing seemed the cause. I took Buddy out, hoping a change of environment might help, but he kept glancing back towards the house, as if something inside was unsettling him. This routine continued for a few more nights, where I'd be awakened by Buddy's whimpering, only to find him terrified of the same corner. His well-being became my growing concern, which led me to install a camera in the living room to figure out what was causing his unusual distress. On the first night with the camera, I was yet again awakened by Buddy's whimpering. Checking the live feed on my phone, I saw Buddy in the same corner, intently observing something unseen. I decided to let the camera roll for the remainder of the night, hoping to find some clues. The morning after, I went through the footage. What baffled me was a sequence where Buddy, out of nowhere, abruptly sat up from his sleep and began staring at the corner. There was no clear reason why he changed his behavior so suddenly. Nothing in the video showed what might have scared him. In the search for answers, I started reading up on pets and their behaviors. There were stories about animals being sensitive to phenomena that humans aren't aware of, but none of them seemed to apply to Buddy's condition directly. Out of desperation, I reached out to a local animal behaviorist, Dr. Morgan, in hopes of understanding Buddy's behavior better. After I briefed her about Buddy's conduct and showed her the footage, she agreed to spend some time observing him. Dr. Morgan invested hours with Buddy, conducting various tests and observations. Despite not being able to find any medical conditions or evident causes for his fear, she suggested getting a specialist dealing with unusual animal behavior. Dr. Wilson, the specialist, arrived with some special equipment. He placed numerous sensors and monitors around the living room, particularly focusing on the corner that seemed to trigger Buddy's anxiety. As we observed Buddy, Dr. Wilson's equipment began detecting peculiar readings, inconsistent changes in temperature and electromagnetic fields, which were hard to justify. Both Dr. Morgan and Dr. Wilson acknowledged that something odd was indeed happening in that specific corner, yet they couldn't provide a concrete explanation of what it could be or why Buddy was being affected so strongly. Caught up in Buddy's unusual actions and the unexplained event in my living room, I found myself in a difficult spot. Dr. Wilson's advice was to keep an eye on things and to call him if anything changed. Hoping to give Buddy some relief, I shifted his sleeping spot close to my room. I'm still puzzled about what scared Buddy or why my living room had strange readings. This whole experience has left me with more doubts than explanations. making me think about the unseen parts of our world. Just like I learned from my own experience, it's so important to pay attention to our pets' behaviors. They can often notice what we can't. If you've ever gone through something like this, know that you're not by yourself. Our third story. My name is Tom, and I'm from a small town named Pincher Creek in Alberta, Canada. My family and I have experienced something that's been haunting our sleepless nights. We thought of sharing our story with you and your audience because sometimes sharing our fears helps to lessen them. We're hoping that someone out there might offer some advice and help put our minds at ease. For some background, our beloved family cat, Whiskers, passed away recently. It was a painful loss for us all, and we tried to come to terms with it, but what happened next only increased our anxiety and fear. A couple of weeks after Whiskers' passing, we buried her beneath the shade of a tree far from our house. We had slowly begun adapting to our lives without her. But one night, I woke up to the faint yet distinct sound of a cat's howl. Initially, I thought I was dreaming, but as I listened more closely, the meowing persisted. It was coming from somewhere outside our house. We all got out of bed and searched for the source, yet found nothing. We thought that maybe a stray cat was on our property and tried to disregard the incident. However, the very next night, the same unsettling cat sound returned. This time, they sounded more pitiful, as if Whiskers was trying to communicate her longing to be with us. The howling grew louder and more frequent, leading our entire family to lose sleep over the ominous noises. Even our children, aged 5 and 7, were frightened and asked to sleep in our bed. Feeling the pressure to resolve the situation, we set up cameras and audio recording devices around our house in an attempt to capture whatever was causing these mysterious howling. But every time we checked the recordings, there was nothing, no sign of an animal or any source of the sounds. As the weeks went by, the nightly cat's howling went from being just once or twice to a constant barrage of desperate cries. Our fear escalated each night as our sleep continued to be disrupted. The exhaustion affected us all, and we started searching for anything that could help explain what we were experiencing. We decided to consult a veterinarian in our town, hoping they might have an explanation for the strange occurrences. They suggested that perhaps a feral cat had taken up residence nearby, which could be the cause of the nighttime disturbances. We set traps and even tried using a cat deterrent around our property, but nothing changed. One evening while we were having dinner, our youngest suddenly burst into tears. When we asked him what was wrong, he told us that he thought he saw Whiskers' face through the window, her wide eyes pleading with him to let her back inside. This frightened us even more, as none of us had seen anything, and we were starting to worry for our children's mental well-being. Our desperation grew. How could we protect ourselves and our children from the unsettling noises and worrisome sights they believed they were experiencing? We discussed our options, going as far as to consider selling our house and moving away, but we knew that there had to be a better solution out there. As a last resort, we came up with a deeply disturbing idea. In the hopes of finding some closure or explanation for these strange events, we made the tough decision to dig up Whiskers' remains. We wanted to see if there was anything out of the ordinary with the way she was buried, and maybe put an end to these distressing noises. The following day, with heavy hearts, we ventured to the distant tree where Whiskers was laid to rest. Gritting our teeth, we carefully dug up the box she was buried in. When we opened it, we were startled by what we found. There were scratch marks on the inside of the box. We couldn't believe it. We trusted our vet's confirmation of Whiskers' death, so this was something we couldn't fathom. We were at a loss. What could this possibly mean? How could Whiskers' remains be in that box with those scratches on the inside? Feelings of sorrow and terror enveloped us. We began to question what we thought we knew. The horrible reality that had begun to unfold weighed heavily upon us. Were we imagining things? The chilling doubt seeped through our thoughts, and we couldn't shake the fear gripping our hearts. In the days that followed, we noticed that the howling seemed to slow down slightly, but still didn't stop. Sleepless nights and the mysterious occurrences continued to bother our family. We're still searching for answers, hoping to find a way to make the noises stop and move on from this experience. We've even thought about moving, just to get away from these nightly disturbances. But for now, we're staying in our home, trying to handle the fear while seeking support and understanding from others who might have gone through similar situations. Thank you for joining us on this eerie journey through the mysteries that our pets unveil. I'm your host, Timothy, and each story leaves us questioning the very reality we live in and the thin line between the world of the living and what lies beyond. If you were left with goosebumps or even the slightest shiver, don't forget to hit that like button. If you want more chilling tales, subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon. Keep those candles burning, listeners. Until next time, may your nights be peaceful and your pets not too mysterious. Good night.